all three of those units, they were smoking crack. So I moved into the crack house pretty much.
Oh my gosh.
I didn't realize it was the crack house till I seen certain people that I use with and the traffic that was coming in day and night. And that's when I started to get closer to God.
Today's guest is a living example of transformation and purpose. Demetrius Braddock is the owner of Braddock Demolition and the founder of Saginaw Gateway to Recovery, a nonprofit treatment facility providing recovery services for men and women. But his journey didn't start there. After battling cocaine addiction, Demetrius made the courageous decision to change his life. Now, 24 years sober, he is on a mission to help others reclaim their purpose, rebuild their lives, and discover that recovery is not only possible, it's powerful. Welcome, Demetrius, to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. What made you decide to come on Healthier Me? Why did you say yes?
I guess because I wanted to tell my story and, share the hope that recovery is possible. No addict need to die from addiction.
Definitely. I'm kind of curious to know about you growing up in Saginaw. So like my family, for instance, came to Saginaw with the Great Migration coming to the plant. So I'm kind of curious, how did your roots sort of land here in Saginaw?
Well, my family is originally from the South Tennessee.
What part?
Nashville.
Okay, nice. I was just there
a
like
little town on the outside, Mount Juliet, Tennessee.
Yeah.
What was their reasons? I don't know today. I was born in 1966 here in Saginaw, Michigan. And that's where I've always lived.
Yeah. How was it growing up during that time period? The 60s, 70s?
It was very difficult. My mother was a single parent of 8 kids. A lot of us are a year apart. We had very little. My mother did the best she could, to provide for us. My father wasn't in the house. And like I said, we had very little. There was days, we didn't eat. My mother got a job at St. Mary's Hospital, and at the time, assistants were called ADC. And they advised her to quit her job and she would get more money. And that's what she did.
That is so interesting.
Yes.
And now it's like this move to get people off certain welfare type systems so that they can work. But back then they told her quit and you can just receive assistance. Did she do that?
Yes, she did it because she was working she was working at St. Mary's Hospital doing housekeeping, and that just wasn't making ends meet. She still struggled, and she did get more money not working as if she would have gotten work. So that was pretty much my childhood. We had very little. I had to go to work at a young age. I shoveled snow in the wintertime or cut people lawn in the summertime. And I brought the money home to her and to get food.
Yeah. Given that you were the third oldest, were the older 2 siblings, did they have that work ethic as well?
No.
Okay.
No.
Yeah. I was kind of curious when I saw 8 siblings, and I said, okay, is he the third oldest? Were there 2 boys, older girls? I was just kind of curious.
I've got a sister that's older than me, and I've got a brother that's older than me. My father did more for those 2 than he did the rest for, he didn't do anything for us. But my younger brother, Chris, would go to work with me. And, that was pretty much our childhood. We was taken out the household at a young age because my mother couldn't take care of us. She couldn't provide for us anymore. And we was placed in foster care for about a year and a half. And she ended up getting us back. My relatives come from the South to help her fix the house and put beds in it, and we went back home.
What age was that?
Oh God, it had to be around 10, maybe 9 or 10. And then our house caught on fire, and I was forced to live with my grandmother for maybe a year or two, and she ended up getting another house, and it just was a rough childhood, and I struggled in and out of, I struggled with school because I didn't have shoes to wear, and I used to have to wear, my mother cut the back of my sister's shoes, and it was very embarrassing, to go to school in girl tennis shoes. But like I say, she did the best she could.
So I'm curious. You kind of went around different households, foster care. Now you're living with your grandmother. I mean, was there ever a desire to go back to your grandmother's house? Was it a desire to go back home? Like, what were you feeling during that time?
I wanted to be with my mother.
Yeah.
My mother was my best friend. I get a little emotion. My mother's been passed going on 19 years, but, she was my best friend, and we talked about a lot of things. Yeah. I just wanted to, I remember telling my mother I'm going to buy her a house and do or take care of her and everything. And my mother always seen something in me at a young age that I couldn't see in myself. When my mother passed away, I had 5 years clean, and I know she made that transition knowing that I was going to be okay.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, from what I've read, the bio that you did send, it sounds like you've been okay.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. And I do want to jump into that as well, but I like to kind of go back for the audience so they can kind of get an understanding of just who you are in your story. So given that kind of chaotic childhood to some extent, at what point was it, like after graduation, that life started to take a turn for you?
Life pretty much took a turn for me after graduation. I got a job in apprenticeship, graphics art. And I worked that job for a few years. And then I got involved with drugs, seeing people with the fast, the lifestyle, that money and drugs went hand in hand in material things. And I wanted that. And I tried to sell drugs for a little bit, and I don't know, somewhere along the way, I got curious, and I started experiencing, the harder drugs. I started smoking marijuana at the age of maybe 15 or 16, and that led into the crack cocaine. And I became addicted instantly, and, my life took the turn for the worse. I became homeless. In and out of drug treatment facilities.
What made you start? Was there a friendship that brought you to the world of marijuana? Like, how did it start? How were you introduced to that?
I was introduced to marijuana, peers, seeing them doing it, smoking it on breaks in school. I just like the effect that it produced, the escape.
Where were you escaping from?
I was escaping from the abandonment issues. I've always was insecure about me anyway. The low self-esteem. I guess there was a lot of things that I was escaping from at the time because I got in trouble, and was taken out the house around 12 and 13, placed into juvenile facilities for a long period of time. And, it was just escaping life, period. I know someone got a worse childhood than I've experienced, but seeing kids in the neighborhood with things that I wanted, I just, was just dealing with a lot of things that I didn't like about me and that I've experienced. Yeah. And drugs was just an escape. And then it led to the harder drugs. When I was around 19 or something, I started smoking crack,
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, I started doing crack. And
what were your siblings doing at that time? Did they notice these changes in you? Or even your mom?
They noticed the change. My siblings, they noticed the change. I tried to hide it, but it eventually shows up. I remember trying that geographical change and packed up around 20 and moved to Columbus, Ohio.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. What was down there that drew you?
I got a job in a printing company, American Speedy Printing, and I ended up using drugs down there, and it landed me in jail for 45 days.
Wow.
Yeah.
Were you still able to keep your job?
No.
After that incident?
No, I moved back home, and I found myself back at my mom's house, and, in and out of treatment facilities, like I said.
How long did that period last of you going in and out of treatment facilities? And so I guess what I'm asking, when you went down there to Ohio, what age were you at that point?
I was maybe 20, 21.
Okay.
It was a short stay.
Yeah.
Like I say, I went down there and ended up in jail, and I had no money to survive there. I was living in a homeless shelter there for a couple weeks. And my mother came and got me out of jail, and I tried to change my life. I was introduced to a 12-step program. I think it was in 1991, and it was suggested I go to treatment, and I went to treatment for 30 days, and I seen that there was a way out, even though I didn't take the suggestions to do what these people suggested. It just, backing up for a running start. And I spent years on the street like that. I burned a lot of bridges on the way, to get to that point where no one would allow me in their house, for my behavior, stealing. And I sold everything that I had, and I found myself on the streets of Saginaw, homeless, sleeping in abandoned houses.
What did you have, outside of your siblings and your mom, did you have like a relationship or children at that point?
No, I didn't have any children.
Yeah.
I've got 2 kids today.
Yeah.
a 19-year-old, she'll be 19 next month, and a 4-year-old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. That's a huge age gap.
Yes. Yes. And
Yeah.
May I'll be 60.
Oh, my gosh. That is so
You know,
cool.
through the grace of God. You know, they never had to experience the addiction part that some parents raise their kids through.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah, definitely. Wow.
you know, I've been blessed there.
Yes, certainly. So, wow. Okay. So 1991, you kind of see that there's a possibility and a way out, but still just some struggle years after that.
Absolutely.
So what was the turning point that finally enough was enough?
Okay. Like I said, years using drugs and dealing with the homelessness. In 1997, my brother was murdered, drug-related crime, and I had 3 years of sobriety, 3 years clean, and recovery is a two-part step: abstinence, and spirituality. You know, I didn't get the spiritual part of the program. I just settled for being abstinent, and a lot of unresolved issues that led me back out. I wasn't doing, you know, I wasn't going to meetings like I was supposed to. I wasn't staying in contact with my sponsor. And I started relying on my own thinking again. And that led me right back out. And I stayed out for maybe a little over a year. And 2001, the end of October, I was done. I was living in an abandoned house and that had no running water, no lights, and I was using crack, and I passed out, and I remember looking up, and, you know, the fear of death was staring me in the face and asking God for help. And I took the drugs that I had left and threw them over into the toilet, and a knock on the door a couple minutes later, and it was my sister. And she asked, "Do you want help?"
Wow.
She didn't even know I lived. I never told her I lived in that abandoned house that was on Holland. And she took me home and put me on her floor and got me into a treatment facility the next day. You know, and I stayed in that treatment facility for 28 days. And my counselor told me that it was, you know, I was leaving tomorrow, and I knew I couldn't leave. I was afraid that I was going to use.
Yeah.
And I went back to my room and I said a prayer. And an hour later, he came and told me that he got me into a program across the Mackinac Bridge in Sault Ste. Marie. And the program was 6 months to a year.
I'm just thinking like so much stuff right now. And I'm just like, wow, the power of a prayer, God,
Yes.
when you like put it out there, how quickly he can answer.
Absolutely.
And it happened. I mean, did you start to see like, okay, God is real? Like it's happened twice already.
No.
No.
I didn't see these things.
Okay.
You know, and I went to this program. Before I went to that program, I had some legal problems, and got a ride to the Greyhound bus station downtown Saginaw. The bounty hunters took me to jail because I was out on bond, and they knew that I was going to this treatment facility, so they revoked my bond, and this was on a Friday, and I went to jail. But my experience, you know, I knew this was God because I had calmness about me. And there was a voice, which then I know that was the Holy Spirit, was telling me everything was going to be okay. I had legal troubles in Bay City. I had a warrant from Bay City, and I was lodged now into the Saginaw County Jail for a drug offense that the bounty hunter revoked my bond. But that whole weekend, I had a calmness about me. It was a spirit around me telling me that I'm going to be okay. And that Monday morning, I went to court, and they called my name. I stood up, and someone said, "I'm representing Mr. Braddock. Remind you, I have no money for a lawyer."
Yeah.
And it was Jim Gus. And he told the judge, Darnell Jackson, first day on the bench, and he told him what was my plans. And Darnell Jackson said that, well, Mr. Braddock got a history of not showing up for court of, hearings. I don't know if I can give him a PR bond. And he said, well, I'm going to take a chance, and I'm going to give you a personal reconnaissance bond, but you're not going anywhere because Bay City's going to come and get you.
Wow.
And Jim said, I did all I could for you. They take me back to my cell, and this spirit is still around me. It won't allow me to get upset. It said, everything's going to be okay. And I'm thinking I'm going to be in jail for at least another week or two. And an hour later, they tell me to pack, get up. And I'm like, wow, Bay City really want me.
Yeah.
They're here good, And one of the turnkemen that I knew said, this is your lucky day because Bay City's giving you a summons to appear because their jail's overcrowded. And I called my sister. They came and got me. And a member in the fellowship came and got me and took me to Bay City the next day and said, deal with this. I've got maybe $1,200 or $1,300 in fines that I didn't pay for traffic violations. And we go to the prosecutor attorney's office to see what courtroom I need to be in. And he asks, why are you out of jail? They said, your jails are overfull. And we gave him the summons. He said, no, our jail's not overcrowded. And I knew that was nothing but God, and that's where I started to believe, I'm protected,
Definitely.
and the guy that, took me to Bay City, he told me, just tell the truth for once in your life, Demetrius. Just tell the judge what your plans are, and it'll work itself out. And I told the judge what I was doing and what my plans was, and the judge said, well, I'm going to dismiss all your fines, and I better not never see you in my courtroom again. And I was off to Sault Ste. Marie.
Oh my gosh. So when I read your bio, I was like, oh, okay, he just went straight ahead, right?
Yeah.
Didn't know all of that in between.
Yes.
Wow.
God demonstrates his power in my life so strongly that he lets me know this is not me. So that's why I magnify him in everything that I do and give him the glory.
Definitely. I'm also curious with your sister. Have you guys ever talked about that moment? Like, did she ever reveal how she discovered? Was it a knowing in herself? Like, I just know my brother's here.
Yeah, we talked about that, and she said, I was asking around town where you was living, and someone told me you was living in that house, and why I came, I don't know. Something told me to check on you.
Wow. Yeah. Oh, I just got chills.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So you go to Sault Ste. Marie, and how long did you stay there?
I stayed in Sault Ste. Marie maybe 4.5 months. And
what was that experience like for you?
It was a good experience. It was something that I needed. It helped me get out the environment, because I was in Saginaw, trapped on the south end, maybe a mile radius for years. I was trapped there. That experience allowed me to get away from that. And also, allowed me to become aware of a lot of behaviors and why I continue to self-destruct, you know, one drug at, one hit at a time. It helped me identify destructive behavior patterns,
Yeah,
and they've got a good staff there.
This episode is brought to you by the Saginaw County Health Department, delivering groundbreaking work in community health transformation and collaborating with Be Well Saginaw partners to make Saginaw one of Michigan's top 25 healthiest communities. Learn more at saginawpublichealth.org. So after the 4 months, did you come back home? Because I know I talked to someone else who also went through recovery, and they said not to go back to the environment, right?
Yes.
That they started their addiction in. And so they didn't go back. With you came back to Saginaw.
Yes, I came back to Saginaw.
Why?
Because this is where my family was.
Was that hard for you to come back?
No, it wasn't hard for me. I knew I had support here. I moved into a one-bedroom apartment that had 3 other units in it. And all 3 of those units, they were smoking crack in. So I moved into the crack house pretty much.
Oh my gosh.
I didn't realize it was the crack house till I seen certain people that I use with and the traffic that was coming in day and night. And that's when I started to get closer to God and ask him to protect me, At that time, I had no job. I had very little money that I was living off of. God protected that apartment. No one broke into my apartment. They had very little in there anyway, but it was mine.
Yeah.
And I read my literature, my 12-step literature. People in the fellowship came, was giving me rides. I went to 2-3 meetings a day. That's all I could do. And I stayed prayed up.
Yeah. Wow.
I understand that it was his grace and his mercy.
All over you.
Yeah. All over me, yes.
All over you.
Yes, I've been protected.
Yes, for sure.
My whole life.
Wow. So you're back home, and what's life like now? So how soon after did you start your demolition company? Or was that like the first business that you built? Was there something else prior?
No. My first 3 years, I didn't, like I say, my first year I didn't have a job. A little after a year, I got a job working for Republic Waste, throwing trash. I worked there for almost 2 years. And I ended up breaking my hand, and I was off work, and I knew that, that time being off work, some self-reflection, knowing that I didn't really want to work for other people. And
I get it.
I, put a lot of thought into what do I want to do. And I opened a company that had express trailers. I started off with 3 trailers, and I would rent the trailers out to people and got a contract with the landfill. And I would, it was slow money, but it was more than what I was making there.
Yeah.
And I saved this money and put it to good use. Around 5 years in the program, my mother passed away, and the end of a relationship. I had, my daughter was born, and found myself homeless again, living with my brother and my sister. I ended up selling the trailers that I built to support my daughter. That was a low point in my recovery. There was a gentleman that I was doing work for wanted me to look at the Saginaw Fairground and demolish a couple buildings, burnt buildings over there, and they gave me hope. And
how did you, after selling your trailers, how does that come about of him wanting you to demolish? Did you already start the demolishing company?
no,
Okay.
no, I did some work for him around his property. And he told me that he had interest in the Saginaw Fairground and he wanted to give me an opportunity to demolish a couple buildings there. And that gave me hope. But going back and forth over a couple months, he decided to back out of it. And I contacted the people that owned the Saginaw Fairground at the time, which was the Saginaw Housing Commission. And they was interested. They asked me to put a proposal together, and I put a proposal together, and Mr. Walker was the director of the Saginaw Housing Commission at the time, and he was dealing with, some illness. He was dealing with cancer, and he was in and out, so I never could meet him. And, this went on for maybe a couple months, and the secretary told me to come to the next board meeting and present what I want to do, and so I did. And, I can remember it like it was yesterday. I got up, and first of all, I prayed about it, and I got up and I spoke for maybe a minute, and one of the board members cut me off and said, "This is not the place nor the time." And, I sat back down, I gathered my couple, my pieces of paper up, and I started walking out the door, and a gentleman put his arms around me, and he said, "Come in tomorrow. I'll meet with you." And it was Mr. Walker.
I
never knew him. It gave me hope. And the next day I met with him, and he said, "Well, we need to go out to the Saginaw Fairground and walk around and look at what needs to be demolished." And he was pointing out buildings I didn't even have on the proposal. And it's, and he said, "I'll present it at the next board meeting if it's reasonable." And I drew up a proposal and for $129,000. And, I'm going back and forth. They're never going to give me this type of money, And the next board meeting came, and it was on the agenda. So it was the topic that they wanted to discuss. Remind you, I don't have any equipment, but I know people that has the equipment that, and when it was all said and done, they voted that I tear the Saginaw Fairground down. And I hired Ground Zero to come in and to tear it down. I hired Braddock Trucking to bring the dirt in. It was like the middleman just directing people.
Yeah, but that's what they needed.
Yes.
Yeah.
And when it was all said and done and scrapping the buildings out, I had almost $130,000 in the bank when it was all said and done. And I ended up buying a house for me and my daughter.
Oh, my gosh. I could cry. You really proved what's possible. I just hope people are really gaining that as they're listening to your story. Someone who comes from a difficult childhood, goes through this season of life of escape, come back to this point, and even in recovery, you didn't go back to drugs. You figured it out. Yes. And also what I'm hearing is that little child of you who hustled and figured things out. I'm going to make some money. You did it in this moment.
Yes.
I don't even think people have the brains right now to say, okay, let me call someone and, tear this building down. You did all of that.
Yeah.
And that was 5 years sober?
That was 5 years.
Wow.
Yes. Remind you, going through a lot of emotional problems. Remind you, when I was living with my brother, I was praying for God to bless me with the house next door to him that they wanted, I think it was $5,000 for, because I can fix it up. It was an abandoned house, but I can fix it up for me and my daughter. And God had something bigger and better for me because
He just laughed at your plan, huh?
yes. And when I had this money sitting in the bank, I started looking for houses, and I go to a middle-class neighborhood, and they had a house that they was asking $100,000 for. It was during the time where the housing market crashed, and it was asking $100,000 for this house. And when we put our offer in for $90,000, they refused it and said that they had an offer on it, and that was a letdown. A couple of weeks later, I go past the house. Bob Young is putting the sign back out there, so I pull in the driveway, and what happened? He said, "Well, their loan didn't go through. They've got it on the market for $89,000 now." And I called my realtor, and she said, "All right, let's put an offer in for $79,000." We did. They refused it. And I'm like, "We should have just put it in for the full thing." She said, "Just calm down."
Yeah.
And a voice said, "Peace be still." I took my hands off of it, and we're looking around for other houses. A month later, I go past the house to see what they've done to it. And the sign's back out there. Bob's pulling back out the driveway. And he said, their loan didn't go through. And I said, "What they want for it?" Bob said, "They want $79,000 for it."
Oh, my God.
And I said, "I'm going to have my realtor put $79,000 on it." And he said, "No. Tell him you'll put $55,000 on it." And I said, "No, Bob, I really want the house." And he said, "Just do it." I tell my realtor, and they put it in for $55,000. And the next day he called me back and said the bank accepted it.
Oh, God.
Yeah. And
Wow.
that's a beautiful 2-story home in a middle-class neighborhood. And my daughter had to be about 2 at this time, and she's had the old shag carpet on the floor, and my daughter's rolling around saying, "This is our house, Daddy. This is our house,"
my
you know.
gosh.
And I was able to furnish the house and do a lot of work, and I took pride in that house.
That is awesome. And you were able to save like so much more money though. Like
Yes.
you had the 130 in the bank, but imagine just giving over that 100. Like it would have left you with 30, but now it's at 55. That is pretty cool.
Yeah. And so, right after that there, I was able to buy a nicer vehicle. When I was staying with my brother and sister, the bank was looking for my truck because I was about 5-6 months behind in payments, and I was hiding it around the corner in a neighbor's driveway and walking around the corner,
Oh my God.
Yeah, so I was able to pay that truck off, and the money was running low. And just maybe 7-8 months in, I said, I've got to find something to do. I didn't want to go to work for no one. And I seen an article in the paper, and it said Saginaw received $17.4 million for blight. And I said, I can get some of this money. I was doing, over the years, work for a landlord, Noah Peterson. He owned about 50-some houses at that time. And that, this was on a Sunday. That Monday, I walk into his office, and I said, I need to talk to you about something. And he said, I know why you're here. And I said, why? And he picked the newspaper up and said, you're coming to talk about this $17.4 million. I said, yes. How did you know? He said, I don't know. I had a feeling you was coming in here. And he said, well, why don't you go put a plan together and what type of equipment you're going to need. And I did. I come back a couple of days later and I said, it's about $300,000. And he wrote a check out for $300,000 and me and him went to the bank and he deposited it for equipment. Now, I'll remind you what we did was we kind of put the horse before the cart. You know, I don't have a contract,
right,
you know,
right.
And we traveled the United States buying used equipment. And I went and set a meeting up with Odell Thorns, who ran the city at the time. And he agreed to meet with me. And he said, well, you know, I can use a guy like you if you're competitive. If you know how to work the bid sheet, I can use someone like you. Just be competitive. And for about a month, I worked that bid sheet. And there was about 9 contractors, different contractors that was bidding on that project for the city. The day of the bidding, we came in third, and I was so disappointed. You know, I was so disappointed, and I didn't know what we were going to do. We got all this equipment. We painted up and cleaned up, and I was so just, oh, my God, it was too much at the time. I'm watching my daughter play on her swing set in the backyard, and I get a phone call, and it was from Odell Thorns. And I said, Mr. Thorns, I'm sorry I didn't win the bid. And he told me, he said, Braddock, you need to pay attention to what people say. He said, listening is an art, and you need to sharpen your skills up as far as listening. I didn't tell you you had to win the bid. I told you need to be competitive. You're more than competitive. That's where it started. It was me and Rody Brothers. That was the city contractors. And that's where it started.
Gosh, I'm blown away.
Yeah, that's where it started for me. That's where my life changed.
Yeah.
You know, we, where other contractors thought they was going to stick the money into tearing houses down, they stuck the money into renovation. We was the contractors that would go in and strip the house down, these abandoned houses down, and then they would stick $150,000 into these houses. And we was the number one contractor on that. And I bought Noel out, I think, that first year.
Yeah.
And I made him $1 million the first year.
Congratulations.
Yeah, I had 43 people on my payroll at the time. We took a lot of low-income people, trained them in asbestos removal, led a movement, and gave them good wages. And it's what helped me to have the lifestyle that I have today.
What came to me was like this full circle moment for you, from a man who was sleeping in abandoned homes.
Yes.
And now you were tearing them down.
Yes.
Did you make that connection of just like how you removed the thing that maybe was a home for other people who was also addicts?
Yeah.
And like, did that connection ever form for you?
Yes. I've torn down a few of the houses that was drug houses, you know, through the city. I remember getting high here, you know. I didn't tear the one down I was sleeping in down there on Bundy Street. Someone else got that one, but I was hoping to get that one.
Wow. Wow. I am blown away. And I'm sure people who are listening, watching are just amazed at this story.
Yeah.
And it's not over because, yes, you have the demolition company, but now you've decided to become the founder of Saginaw Gateway to Recovery.
Yes.
So talk a little bit more about Saginaw Gateway to Recovery. Where is it at in Saginaw?
It's at 925 North Michigan. I wanted to give back. I go to 12-step meetings on a regular, and I see the addiction, the struggle that these people come in with, and how can I do God's will? And my plans was to do it with Houghton School in Saginaw, because that was a school that was rebuilt in the 90s, and it was closed down. And I talked to Dr. Roberts at the Board of Education, and he said, well, put a proposal in on it, and we'll go from there. And I had architects looking at the building. They said it's going to make it residential friendly, cost almost $2 million. And it was a lot. I couldn't get it zoned for it because it's in a residential neighborhood. And there was a voice said, peace be still. So after about 3 months of banging my head with this project, I took my hands off of it. And I was driving down Michigan, and I seen this big mansion, and I seen a sign in front of it said, office space for lease. And I called my realtor, and I gave her the address, and she said, I know that guy. I'm selling a piece of property for him now. I can get you in there. And a couple hours later, we was in the building. That's when I found out it was 2 buildings, because the building's been setting for close to 3 years, and a lot of foliage and overgrown things around it. And I ended up we looked at the buildings, and it was the floor plan, the layout of it was better than I could do with this school. Like, this thing is immaculate inside, and we end up agreeing on a price, and I end up getting possession of the buildings, and we re-landscaped them, painted the buildings, and gave it curb appeal. This facility is much better than what I expected, what my vision of a treatment facility. My goal is to have it to be one of the nicest treatment facilities, not in Michigan, but in the country. This place it was built in 1915. A.T. Farrow built it, and it's in immaculate shape.
Yeah.
And, I would one day like to give you a tour.
Yes, I want a tour.
Yeah.
So that's how I came about your story. I actually saw this on Facebook. I'm assuming you did a story with the city of Saginaw.
Yes.
And so that's how I saw the picture of you. I saw the inside, and I remember driving by that building like, okay, I wonder if anybody's ever going to, purchase it. I can't remember if it was, I don't know if it was Covenant before.
It was
there.
Covenant,
okay.
Then it was an eye doctor.
Okay, got you.
Yeah.
Yep. So I remember like those 2 places, and then of course no one was there.
Yes.
And now to know that you're in this facility and you're helping so many other people. So how long is the treatment plan for those individuals? How long can they stay there?
Well, like I say, we are a clinical residential facility, and our program is 30 to 90 days.
30 to 90 days.
Yes.
And then what's the next step after they leave?
We try to transition them into halfway houses or sober living houses, where they've got to get a job and they've got to continue to attend outside meetings, 12-step meetings.
Definitely. So what are you looking for within the treatment facility? It's a nonprofit, so I'm assuming, are you getting any type of government help or assistance, or is it just regular people writing a check to support you?
Okay. Right now, take it back a little bit.
Okay.
My vision was I fix these buildings up. I get the state licensings. I get the nonprofit and get all my articles in place, which that we did, and we can open up and we can accept insurance companies. Yes, we are a nonprofit, and it just didn't work like that because we can't deal with insurance companies. They want accreditations like CARF, things like that, or I can't think of the name, but they want these accreditations, and the manual is about that thick dealing with CARF, and you must be up and running for 6 months. Then they come and walk your facility, and if you're operating to their standards, you get their accreditations. Then you sign a contract with MedState. Drug addicts, people using drugs, trying to seek help, don't have any money. So MedState finds the funding through Medicaid or Molina, Blue Cross, wherever these fundings come to pay for their stay. So right now we're into the accreditation stage. We opened, this is our 6th week. I've been funding, these residents stay until
yourself. You've been doing that. Wow.
The average stay that Medicaid will pay for a month's stay is between $10,000 to $12,000, and we've got 9 residents, and I've been funding their stay. It costs roughly around $22,000 to $24,000 a month to operate this, this facility. The Saginaw Health Department has been fantastic. Hopefully today they sign off on a $500,000 grant for us.
Oh, I'm praying for you. Definitely. They are very helpful. I work at CMU Health, so we have a partnership with Be Well Saginaw and Health Department and everything.
Part of the Be Well.
They are amazing people. This Be Well show.
Absolutely.
Be Well Saginaw show
with
right
the
here.
opiate settlement funds, and that will take a lot of pressure off of me.
Yes, definitely. I am just, I don't know what I was expecting. I prayed before I got here as well. And I was like, I want to have a good conversation. And indeed I did.
Yeah.
This was amazing. Let people know again where your facility is at and if there's anything that you need, how they can support you.
The name of this facility is Saginaw Gateway to Recovery. It's located at 925 North Michigan, Saginaw, Michigan. And what we need is like hygiene products, soap, deodorant, shampoo. Some guys come in with just the clothes on their back, clothing.
Well,
you're welcome to bring them to the facility.
Mr. Braddock, this has been an amazing conversation. I'm just hoping that people will connect with your organization. They'll drop off these items. I'm definitely going to be supporting now that I know more details. Thank you so much for being on this platform and sharing your story.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.